Wow, it's all I can say. Wow, wow, wow. From where I left off yesterday, I said the only way to actually read the wording of the new Data Protection Act is to look at the European version that's being introduced into the European Parliament, which I've spent the morning doing, and by God, it's an interesting thing. Because the legislation, it talks a lot about a very interesting term, which I've been familiar with for, well, about 10 years now, I guess, something like that, 8 years maybe, which is natural person. Are you a natural person? Well, you are a natural person if you are a member of the human species, apparently. But what I was talking about yesterday about the knitting together of the virtual identity and the physical identity, the legislation, as it appears in the European Parliament at least, says a natural person and something called a data subject. So apparently, with the new Data Protection Act, you will become a data subject, and you would be subjected, or you are a subject, under something called a controller. So there are controllers, and there are processors, and there are data subjects, and you are a data subject. But don't worry if you don't like being a data subject. I know it sounds quite miserable, but don't worry, because data subjects have rights, and actually the Data Protection Act is about introducing rights for data subjects. It sounds very exciting and brilliant, and a glimpse into the new world, or the new model of society, if you ask me. There's one more piece to this strange conundrum, and that is, I mentioned yesterday that they're going to be expanding the very definition of personal data, and one of the more important things about that is that genetic data is going to be classed as personal data, and possibly you can kind of work out what that means. Guarding, protecting your personal data, meaning that your DNA data will be essentially, guarded by the controllers, whoever the hell they are. But it does mean that your virtual identity, you can plainly see, is at one point going to be paired with your genetic identity. But I personally, I intend to never, ever, ever submit my DNA data to anyone. I don't even want to submit it in a hospital scenario, because of course now it's easy to see, isn't it, why Google was so very interested in NHS data. It's because NHS data, particularly DNA profiling, seems to be, or is becoming, the very bedrock data set to form a new kind of digital identity system. It's interesting to think as well that, if it's perfectly into the narrative of the government agenda, because when you think about, pairing a data subject with supposedly their data and creating an individual identity for anyone who uses the internet, that actually solves, or you could say, moves to solve a national security issue, which is the issue they're having with trolls, essentially. People online, or entities online, mostly multiple entities controlled by a single operative or a troll, having, political influence over people through social media or whatever. This whole idea of creating a single data subject solves that problem, because you can't have a single person controlling multiple identities anymore, or that's the way that they want it.